Okay, so this is going to be a video about this piece here. Oops, can I see it on the video? This piece here, which is kind of a self-portrait with my mother. And so I'm going to tell you some background so that you know a little bit about this piece before I read a poem about it, because it goes with the poem. And so there's me, and in the background is my mother. And when I did this poem and piece, my mother was already passed on. She passed on in 2004. And I did this in 2016, along with the other collage that I already showed you, which is here. So my mother. This poem is kind of not about my mother, but she's in this piece, and she's sort of, she has a big presence in the poem because it's the end of the poem kind of refers to her and her personality. And so I wanted to tell you a little bit about Linda Stairs. She was born Linda Grand in Welland, Ontario. She had 4 brothers, and she was the only woman. She was the only girl that was born to that family. And she was a nurse for a while. She was sick for 12 years before she died. And she read a lot of books. So every single book in some series is, I think she read everything that Charles Dickens ever wrote. She read every single biography of Napoleon Bonaparte. She read every single Stephen King novel. She was really a reader, and she loved to read. And her last years when she was sick, she got to read a lot, which I think was really good, and she got to knit. And she was really a knitter. Like, I have some Afghans that she knit here. She had some great color combinations. She has a lot of Afghans that are still out there in the world. I don't know where they are, but this one was the last one that she was finishing before she died. And she, like, I had the wool, I gave it to my sister, and I just sort of did some crocheting on it, but I wasn't very good at it. I still have her crochet hook, and then I just gave up, and it's a sort of small blanket because I gave up, and I thought, well, I won't do it, finish it, I'll just finish it off the row that was there. Or I did a few rows. They're not very good rows compared to hers. And this one I really like. This one's nice and strong. And this is a scarf that she made me for my birthday, not long before she died. And she asked me what my favorite color was, and I said black. And she said, I knew you were going to say that. And so she made me this nice black scarf. And so, okay, and so come with me. All right. So this here is a picture of my mother. She's in the kitchen of our old house with some hydrangeas, and she's in this sculpture that I made, kind of like a spider in her web, and that's kind of how I feel about the Afghans and the knitting and the crocheting. And she did knit also. All of that was very creative, and she was very much a weaver, like a spider. And I think of her that way in a way. So anyway, I have some other artifacts of my mother because she was kind of an artist. She was kind of an artist in a way, in her own sense. I think knitting is very creative, and it's time consuming. And she also appeared in a dream once, long after she died, to me. Um, and she was an artist, and she just put out all her stuff right on the walls. And I think that gave me courage to do the same thing myself. Because at the time I was being really, I think I'm just shy about my art, because I know that other people's art is really good. And my art is pretty basic most of the time and pretty simple, but at the same time, it's kind of like a signature. Like, not everyone has the perfect signature, but it's your signature. And it's like your little language. And if you care about the person, then the art is interesting to you. You know what I mean? Like, and I really cared about my mother. Anyway, the dream was very interesting. Lots of art with like kind of naive, kind of like mine art, but a little more feminine and a little more flowery and a little more sweet. And what struck me about it is she was inviting people in to see it. She was not shy about it at all. And that dream told me that I shouldn't be as shy as I am about art, because I think everyone should make art, and that's just how I feel. Anyway, so let me go on to some things that my mother did that were kind of, first of all, here's my mother. This is a picture of her and my cousin Susan, who passed on. I think she might have been a young adult or an adult, but just maybe in her 20s when she died. I'm not sure how old she was, but I was a child. And there's my mother. And this must have been her wedding day. She has confetti in her hair, and her hair is all done. And she's wearing a little dress. So she must have come home from the church, and they were getting ready to do the reception. Anyway, there she is. And this would have been in Odessa, where my grandmother lived, Florence Grant. So that's really nice. And this is a picture of her as a child. Very cute. And I have something very cool. This is a calligraphy book, and my mother kind of doodled in it, and she was kind of practicing calligraphy, which I think is adorable. So as you can see, she was writing her name into stairs. She was practicing her letters, and she wrote Happy Easter. And she says here, dear folks, like she's practicing writing a letter. And then she makes this nice, cute eye with flowers around it. And then she's practicing bigger letters. And then she says happy birthday, I think. And I keep this because I think it's pretty cute. It shows the cuteness, you know. My mother had a lot of charm. And so this is a letter to my great aunt and uncle, my aunt Peggy and my uncle Ambrose. And she must have been sick at the time, because it says thank you for, or I'll just read the letter. So it says, Dear Ambrose and Peggy, thanks for all the prayers and especially the masses from the Society of the Little Flower. That is something that my grandmother was also involved with. Like there's a Society of the Little Flower is dedicated to Saint Teresa of the Little Flower, who was a very interesting saint. She was not really that good at like she wasn't that intellectual, but she had a lot of like she was kind of obsessed with flowers and the way that flowers talked about God and things like that. Like she was a very sweet saint. Anyway, my grandmother corresponded with Florence Grand, her mother, corresponded with the Society of the Little Flower all the time. And so they must have purchased masses from the Society of the Little Flower for my mother to get better. And she had cancer. She also had really intense disease, autoimmune disease. That's pretty rare. Anyway, she stayed alive for 12 years, even though she was very sick. So it says, glad to hear all is well with everyone and all are in good health. I am doing better. The weather here is quite damp and cold, so we're never warm, or so it seems. John's first grandchild, that's her brother, John Grand. Her first grandchild, Stephen Jonathan Ethier, was baptized last Sunday in Belleville. And so here she's actually just practicing her calligraphy. So she's not actually writing a letter. So she just sort of trails off into other things. She says, a nice outcry, farewell. I don't know what that means. And then it says, Mom came to Belleville with us. That's my grandmother, Florence Grand. She is suffering from broken ribs again. She heard her hand over the laundry cart. Something about a laundry cart. She is suffering from broken ribs. Okay, she is going to have bone density tests done next month. She will have lots of pain for a few weeks. And then she's just writing bones, Mary, doing work, laundry, Joe. And then she's just rhyming row, sco, whoa. And then she writes dear folks again. Dear folks, dear folks, dear folks. And she draws this cute picture. So she's just adorable, my mother. Like, her best years actually were when she was unfortunately ill. Like, my best memories of her are when she was reading and knitting. She loved to do that most of all, so it's very interesting. But anyway, so that's my mother and her kind of sweet little artistry you can see here, and her penmanship. And one thing about my mother that I admire the most is that no one could really tell her how to feel about anything. She was really strong in herself and confident, and she really liked being her own person, and she just wasn't very easily swayed from what she wanted to do. And so I admire that a lot, and that is part of this poem. So this poem, like the other, this piece, like the other piece, is inspired by instruction from my fellow poet, one of the poets that I am associated with in a group. And if you don't have a poetry group that sends things through the mail to each other like instructions, you can easily remedy this. It's a very good thing to do. We're a very secretive group, although we love talking about ourselves. So we used to be a secret group, but now we refer to ourselves as secretive because we just talk about ourselves a lot. Anyway, which I guess isn't that secret. So let me read the instructions for this one. It was actually a postcard. This is a very interesting prompt. So it was a postcard of a little girl, and there was a little blue paper on it that said hatchet, and this is a very surreal prompt. A little girl that was holding something, and she had scissors, and it was a postcard that was addressed to someone, and my instruction was to send the postcard to this other person who I didn't know once I fill it out with the poem and send it to that person who did not expect it to come. So the postcard was from a bookstore on Dundas Street in Toronto called the Monkey's Paw. I don't know if they're still there, but it said the Monkey's Paw, old and unusual printed matter with special emphasis on visual culture, obsolete opinions and technologies, earnest works on highly specific topics, books as artifacts, and pop detritus. So that's interesting. And so, let's see. And also there was a sticker or something that said something about the Canadian Revitalization Project, but I'm not sure what that's about. And so the Monkey's Paw, I looked up, and it is a ghost story, or kind of a ghost story that was published in 1902 and written by an English person named W.W. Jacobs. And maybe it's a little bit famous, I'm not really sure. But anyway, it's kind of a grisly story. I think the moral of the story is that you shouldn't try to raise someone from the dead because they'll come back as a monster, something like that. Oh, and also the Monkey's Paw in Toronto, apparently, according to what I found, was the Monkey's Paw is also home to the Bibliomat, the world's first randomizing vending machine for old books. So that's a great idea. Imagine having a vending machine for books, but it was a randomizing one. I like the idea of a randomizing Bibliomat, but wouldn't it be cool if you could actually choose the book? I would like to be able to choose the book. Anyway, that's totally interesting. So this was my prompt. I was thinking about the word hatchet, and I was thinking about irony, because there was a lot of irony in the picture. And I kind of like irony, but I don't really like irony, but I pretend to like irony in the poem. The world as it was in 1902, 1903, 1904, when the Monkey's Paw, the story, was really hitting the big time. The Monkey's Paw bookstore is thinking the Bibliomat, which apparently is for people who don't care what they read. But I really care what I read. I would want to choose those books. If I'm paying money, I want to be able to choose the book that I'm reading. They better make the books good. That's the thing. Make the books good and we'll buy the books. Don't you worry. Okay, and so how the delivery of something can change the thing itself, infusing old objects with magic, irony, humor, and togetherness. So that whole feeling of selling books like that. Maybe you could sell antiques that way too, somehow. People like vending machines. I don't know why. Anyway, so what I was thinking of was, okay, so this made me think about books, and it made me think about 1904 and my ancestors and my ancestresses mostly, and the women in my family and how strong they are, and like that story of the monkey's paw, and how my mother would never fall for a monkey's paw. You know, that story would never exist with my mother. She was very down to earth, and most of the ancestresses in my family. Um, so then I was thinking about the word hatchet and how my parents bought a property, like a little cottage property on Vardy Lake, which is close to Colebrook and Yarker, Ontario. And we spent a lot of summers there. And when we were children, the three of us, and at one point, and my father cleared the land with, you know, he had to clear the land and build this cottage. And he dug the well, and it was a real well, like with a pump and everything. We didn't have electricity in the cottage. We had a big wood stove. My father got the flooring from an old wooden basketball court, and so the floor was very cool. Like it was all the different stripes you could see, but they weren't in order. So it was very interesting. The cottage doesn't exist anymore. It's been torn down. But it had nice, like patio doors, something that you would want, you know. Eventually, I think it had a shower because we were living there while we were building our other house in Odessa for like a summer. And so I think it did eventually get electrified, and it had running water. It was right on Vardy Lake. There was a shoreline right on the property, and we used to catch frogs and snakes. I used to catch snakes quite a bit because I liked the garter snakes, and when they're young, they're really easy to catch. And the house was kind of on stilts, and there were snakes underneath the house, like a nest of snakes, and so I was interested in the snakes. And there was a beautiful crabapple tree in the front yard, which was so beautiful, and really kind of an old tree. And my brother and I, when we were maybe 9 or 10, we went walking in the woods, just sort of off walking, which we did a lot. And we found this octagonal house cottage that was sort of abandoned and open. So we went in there, and it looked like someone had literally just left, but we didn't know why. It was open, and then there was a couple of shoes in there. It was an octagonal house. It was so beautiful, beautifully designed. And it looked kind of like a lighthouse, like a 2-story lighthouse. And we were just in there. I mean, we were kids. It was a beautiful day. And I always remembered that. So I wasn't raised by astronomers in an octagonal cabin, but my poem says that I was, because it's a little tribute to that, which makes me think of books. I was thinking of the person who could live there. Maybe they were an astronomer. Maybe they seemed to have a lot of books. They seemed to like books, and they were an interesting person. So anyway, that pretty much explains everything that you're going to encounter in this poem. A very long explanation of this poem. Okay, so I guess I'd better read it while you're looking at this. Oh, and we had a party line on Vardy Lake, which we shared with our neighbors. That's how long ago it was. Like the phone would ring, And it might not be for you, it might be for your neighbor. Okay, and so let's see. So this poem is called What You Might Need If You're Going to Be Hanging Around Here More Often. And this piece is not titled, but it is a collage, as before, of little drawings that I've done. This is me with some snakes and a telephone and some books. And there's my mother in the background and an octagon. And there's my reflection in the back. Okay, so what you might need if you're going to be hanging around here more often. I wonder what would happen to the world if all the irony suddenly disappeared. Then truly, oh, some people would be forced to the wall then. Yes, indeed, irony and I. We think outside of the box and we turn around and think back inside of the box again, and then we change course and transit back outside of the box. I'm an ironomaniac specimen, visiting each room once, and you're all in the last room I visit. I was raised by astronomers in a forest in a cabin shaped like an octagon. My father cut down small trees with hatchets to make the driveway and the walkways. There was a well on the southeast side of the property with a pump that my father drilled with my uncles. There was a crabapple tree and hornets, and water snakes and gravel roads. There was a telephone we shared with our neighbors, but there wasn't any internet. Everyone had the same kind of television. There were only a few channels everyone had. And then a little further back, when it was 1904, people were their own octagons for books, moving around in boring units. Oh, woman, what could you do? Visitors, lovers, radio and newspapers, your cousins, pictures of the big city and ghost stories and throwing things. Today my shirt is buttoned up to the top because I'm dressed like 1904, sitting in the bookstore. The book was invented a long time ago. I invented the case of books. Many books have I read in my lifetime. Think, think, think about the words. Think, think, think about the black lines. Well, a new introduction can transform us all. Random wheel of book fortune ticking, the lucky winner destination. Old objects, new magic. Place me in the world and it will be night, day, and night again. Sky soft, black powder, background. Look takes the streaks of vision, irises, light tracers, and eye tricks, absorbing the movement. Behold the moving darkness. Blackest black soft sky. Oh, opaque and matte, postcard picture black, the heart of my beautiful mother, a poised, still introduction. Amethyst, emerge, emerge, emerge in any way you can. Do not believe in the rules. I guess you have to be careful about talking about the rules these days, but I think the spirit of it was more, don't believe in your own limitations. Fly outside of what the limits are for you as far as what you believe you can do. Open yourself up, emerge like from a chrysalis, that kind of thing. Anyway, so that is my piece for today. I really appreciate all the encouragement and people talking to me about my videos and things like that. I really appreciate that encouragement, and I hope that you have a wonderful day today. Okay, thanks. Bye.